So the thing that sucks about free advice is that sometimes it's wrong. And I know the person giving it might have the best of intentions, or the tip sounds like it makes sense, but then it fails under a little scientific scrutiny. And I'm sure I'm probably at fault for some of this stuff too. I'm definitely not perfect, but I do try to back up everything I say with evidence. So in this video, we're gonna be looking at 5 of the most common grooming tips you've probably heard and discovering whether they're true or false. Let's get into it. What's up guys, Trav White here. Welcome back to the channel. Big shout out to today's sponsor, the subscribe button. It's totally free to do. It helps my channel grow so I can actually make a living from this. Also, if you want to join like-minded men on their hair and beard growth journey, hit the link in the description and come join the Mannered Mains Facebook group. All right, so the first tip I hear all the time is that you're supposed to cleanse your face with warm water because it opens your pores, and then rinse it off with cold water because it closes your pores. So what do you guys think? Is this true or is this false? It's actually false. Despite what you've heard on YouTube, you can't steam your pores to open wider. Pores are not muscles and they don't expand and contract with different water temperatures. Your pore size is completely determined by your genetics, and unfortunately, it can't really change sizes. The reason your pores might look bigger before you wash and smaller after you wash is simply because they're clogged. They're clogged with sebum, they're clogged with dirt, they're clogged with dead skin cells, and this causes the pore to grow and to spread. And then after you cleanse your face, your pores retract back to their regular size, which creates the illusion that this warm water, cold water opening and closing thing is happening, but they aren't actually getting bigger or smaller based on the temperature of the water. It's because you're cleansing your pores. And so your pore size is actually fixed by genetics. The second tip I hear everywhere is that beards grow back denser, faster, thicker, coarser after each time you shave. So what do you guys think? Is this true or is this false? This one is also false. A 2007 paper written in the British Medical Journal addressed several medical myths, and this was actually one of them. The paper reads, and I'm quoting, "Strong scientific evidence disproves these claims. As early as 1928, a clinical trial showed that shaving had no effect on hair growth. More recent studies confirm that shaving does not affect thickness or the rate of hair regrowth. In addition, shaving removes dead portions of the hair, right? Not the living section lying below the skin's surface. So it's unlikely to affect the rate or the type of growth. Additionally, shaved hair lacks the finer taper seen on the ends of unshaven hair, giving the impression of coarseness when you shave it off. Similarly, the new hair that has not yet been lightened by the sun or other chemicals exposures and things like that will result in an appearance that seems darker than your existing hair after shaving." So yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors, guys. Shaving doesn't speed up growth. It doesn't make your hair denser or thicker or coarser. It just looks that way. So myth busted. And then the next tip that I hear all the time is that you can train your scalp to produce less oil if you have greasy hair. And you do this by washing your hair less frequently. And this is actually a tip I've given on my channel before too. So let's actually address this. Is this true or is this false? So the answer to this is it's actually kind of both. It's kind of true and it's kind of false. So the reason it's so nuanced is because there are several factors that affect oil production in your scalp, right? It's not only shampoo frequency. It is true that shampoo frequency is one of many different factors that affect oil production, but it may not be the one like impacting it the most, right? So if we were to make a list of all of the variables that affect sebum production from your scalp and then weigh them based on the ones that most affected sebum production and the ones that least affected sebum production, the frequency of shampooing would probably be at the bottom. So here's a list of things that affect sebum production in your scalp. We'll kind of go from most impactful to least impactful, right? So at the very top of the list, we have genetics, right? So even if you change your shampoo frequency, if you have genetically overactive sebaceous glands, the difference is going to be negligible at best. Now, some men have overactive sebaceous glands and they need to fight that. And if you want to learn more about that, I actually made a video on how to fight oily and greasy hair. Link to it in the description. All right, so the next on the list is diet. So there's a 2009 paper from the Journal of Dermatology and Endocrinology that showed sebum production increases in like Western diets that are high in refined sugars, processed carbs, Western diets have a higher ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. The paper also showed that sebum production is shown to change based on whether you're eating in a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus. So a diet high in omega-3s, which is found in like fish, or eating low glycemic foods like fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, this had lower inflammatory markers for acne and oily skin. So if you want to decrease a lot of that sebum production, then put away the refined carbs, put away the high fatty foods like mainly omega-6s, or just reduce the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. So eat more fish, eat more avocados, eat more nuts, things like that. Okay, so next we have your hormones. And this is a little different from genetics because as your hormones change, your sebaceous glands can change as well. So if you think about like a teenager going through puberty, they tend to get more breakouts and more acne than an adult, right? So without getting really sciencey, in addition to sebaceous glands, you also have androgen receptors inside of your pores. And these are actually the areas that play the biggest role in hair loss in men prone to male pattern baldness, right? They have a genetic disposition to DHT sensitivity, which DHT is a byproduct of testosterone, which is converted into DHT by the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. So in someone with male pattern baldness, your DHT will build up. Nature decided that you were someone whose hair follicles are sensitive to DHT, and it starts to miniaturize that follicle until it eventually dies. And this is essentially what happens in male pattern baldness. That's a different topic for a different video, but I was just using that as an example to explain that hair follicles have sebaceous glands and they also have androgen receptors within those pores. So when it comes to sebum production, the sebocytes can influence the androgen receptors and vice versa, right? They can talk to each other to some degree. Now, to what degree they communicate and what degree they trigger, more or less oil production is way too complex of a topic to explain in this video. But what you do need to know is that hormones also play a role in sebum production. So next we have the weather. When it's hot or it's humid, your sebaceous glands work in tandem with the sweat glands, right? So what essentially happens is you sweat water and electrolytes through your eccrine sweat glands, which are next to your sebaceous glands, and then you secrete sebum as well, which mixes with the sweat to slow the rate of evaporation to help you stay cooler for longer. So this is why when it's hot, when it's humid out, your hair tends to get oilier, it tends to get greasier. And then finally we have shampoo frequency. So this does play a small role in sebum production, as the more often you strip sebum from your scalp, the more your scalp needs to produce to protect your hair. So if you have genetically balanced sebum production, your diet is amazing, the weather isn't crazy humid, then yeah, it's entirely possible to train your scalp to produce less sebum by reducing your shampoo frequency. But this tactic is not going to defeat genetics. It's not going to defeat a poor diet. It's not going to defeat hot and humid weather or your hormones that change as you age and so on and so forth. So this is actually a half truth, but it is a tool that you can try even if it doesn't always work. Okay, so next we have the tip that trimming split ends will speed up hair growth. So is this true or false? This is technically false, but you should still trim split ends. So let me explain. So this is an indication of damage, and it can worsen if it's not taken care of. And by worsen, I mean it can lead to breakage, which will slow down hair growth. So the statement itself that trimming split ends will speed up hair growth, it's indirectly true, even though the statement is technically false, because hair growth happens at the roots, right? Hair growth doesn't grow from the end, hair grows from the roots. So if you have split ends happening at your ends, this will have zero effect on the growth happening at your roots. But we run into issues when the split starts traveling up the hair shaft, right? So this can cause hair to break mid-shaft, or it can travel all the way up and break off near the root. And this can cause a bunch of half-broken hairs all over your head, which isn't a good look. And it also takes inches off of the growth you've been so patiently and eagerly waiting to happen. So it's not that split ends stop your roots from growing. It's the breakage of the hair that is still in that anagen growth phase that slows down growth. So what trimming split ends does is it doesn't speed up hair growth, it stops hair growth from slowing down. So we'll give that one a half truth. And finally, we have our old pal Biotin. And this is a tip I see over and over and over again, which is that taking biotin supplements will help speed up hair growth. Okay guys, this is so false that I'm really tired of hearing it. But first of all, let's just get something out of the way. Yes, biotin is necessary for healthy hair. And yes, people who have experienced non-genetic hair loss or increased shedding from things like nutritional deficiencies have reversed it from supplementing biotin along with other micronutrients. And there are studies that show this that I will link to in the description. But when you're not deficient in biotin and you take it as a supplement, it doesn't give your hair like magical wizardry superpowers that will speed up hair growth in someone with healthy nutrient proficient hair, right? Biotin is a micronutrient, it's vitamin B7, that's it. It's not a steroid or something like that. So for example, when I work out to put on muscle at an optimal rate, I have to eat 0.8 to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. If I want to gain muscle faster and I've optimized sleep, I've optimized hydration, I'm getting all my macronutrients, and I'm eating in a calorie surplus, then doubling my protein intake to 2 grams per pound of body weight is not going to make me double my muscle gain, right? I have to take a steroid, like some sort of performance enhancing drug, right? Biotin is not steroids for hair. It's vitamin B7. It's a micronutrient. But here's some good news. Biotin does improve your body's keratin infrastructure, which is the protein that makes up 90% of your hair. But the daily recommended dose from the ODS, which is the Office for Dietary Supplements, basically recommends a daily dosage of 30 micrograms in adults. And one whole cooked egg gives you 10 micrograms of biotin. There's a lot of biotin in egg yolk. And you can get your daily dose of biotin from 3 eggs, right? So it's highly unlikely that you're deficient in biotin if you're eating relatively well. You're also gonna find biotin in nuts, in avocados, in sweet potatoes, in broccoli at a little bit lower percentages, but they're in there. And many shampoo and conditioner brands use biotin as like a marketing tool to sell their products. So if you want to use those products, you know, go for it. There might be some placebo effect or something, but I would just like to put to rest that supplementing biotin will magically speed up your hair growth. It's not gonna do that. If you eat well, you eat nutrient-dense foods, you're sleeping well, you're not stressing out too much, and you're just patient, then your hair is going to grow, I promise. So that's all for today, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Ready to get going. Take that, just take it out. Take it out. Scoot over a little bit. Hair is looking good. No shedding on any spots. Or the tip, hair in my mouth. Okay, so next we have the tip that, beard itches, and I'm shedding. Look at that. Here we go. Shedding all the time.